Hi, my name is Emma Reed. I am an 8th grade math teacher, and in this video I am going to talk about best strategies for summarizing lessons from the illustrative math curriculum, and specifically I'm going to be focusing on day 4 and day 6 of Unit 7 or week 23 in the shared drive. So the summary section is a part of the story of your lesson, and the story of your lesson is the part of the big story of the whole unit. So I encourage you to think of what you summarize at the end of a lesson as being your intro to the next lesson and making that connection to students with some kind of simple sentence frame. So summarizing in the illustrative math curriculum is really where we bring all of the students' ideas from their discovery and explore section of the lesson together and create kind of a chunk of learning to take away from that lesson and bring into the next lesson. So on day 4, the summary is going to create the rule for multiplying powers of 10. Similarly, on day 6, the summary section is going to help students generalize the rule for raising powers of 10 to another power. And these 2 days, summary sections are extremely important because they lay the foundation for students to understand those rules with any base. And they also lay a foundation that you can refer back to when you talk about other rules of exponents, like dividing powers of 10 next week. So when you do the summary section, it's very important for you to start with student thinking that emphasizes the concepts that you want students to take away from the lesson. So you want to look at the key questions, and you want to especially focus for day 6 on the question, why do you multiply the exponents when you write a power with a single exponent? And on day 4, you want to especially emphasize the question, in general, what is a rule for multiplying 2 powers of 10 together to a single power of 10? So you want to start with students' answers to those questions, but at the end of the lesson, you also want there to be a consensus in the class about what the rule is, and then a place for students to refer back to that rule, and for you to refer back to that rule throughout the unit. So I'm going to draw your attention now to an additional resource that will be linked for you to use for week 23. In illustrative math, they suggest that at the end of the lesson about multiplying powers and at the end of the powers to powers of 10 lesson, you create a visual that is color-coded so that students have both the rule recorded somewhere that they can refer back to and an example of why it works. So what I did was I made a slide deck called Week 23 Anchor Charts, where you will be able to post this slide deck in your classroom and students can click on the whiteboard to refer back to rules and examples of why they work from week 23. So you can click on each of these and they'll take you to another slide in the document. So you have the rule that again comes from student thinking. So on day 4, students are exploring through the lesson and discovering this rule. So you're not directly teaching this. You're drawing it out of student thinking and student work, and you're emphasizing especially the idea of factors and how, if we go back to the main page and to the why does this work section, you're especially emphasizing the way that the exponent tells us how many factors of 10 there will be, and that when we expand 10 to the 3rd power and 10 to the 2nd, we can prove why we are able to add the exponents. So the goal of the Explore section is to give students repeated opportunities to explore and discover this pattern. And your work as a teacher is going to come especially at the end of the lesson during the summary in looking through that student work and finding the student work that shows a student coming up with this rule. And once you have shared the student work that shows these examples, you are going to connect to this anchor chart so that we are able to anchor that idea, refer back to it, and build on it in the future. So that is the anchor and the summary that you want to take out of day 4. When you are summarizing day 6, to go back to the main page here, you want to emphasize factors again. So going into the why does this work, we are color coding to show that we have 3 groups represented in the parentheses. And as a side note, reminding students that parentheses are a way that mathematicians show grouping is a really important thing to mention during this unit, since they'll see those parentheses coming up around negative bases when we do expanded form like this. It's important for them to understand that that's the purpose of that symbol. So here we can see those 3 groups of 2 factors that are 10. And if we have 3 groups of 2 factors, we have 6 factors all together. So that language of multiplication is going to come in the factors, and it's also going to come in the idea of groups and how many groups we have. So I am going to practice what I preach and summarize what we talked about in this video. To bring everything together, illustrative math has a structure of launch, work, synthesize, which we have translated into the idea of your launch or intro, the explore section, and at the end, the summarizing. So illustrative math's equivalent for summarizing is synthesizing. And what they say on their website is that during the activity synthesis, the teacher orchestrates some time for students to synthesize what they have learned. This time is used to ensure that all students have an opportunity to understand the mathematical punchline of the activity and situate the new learning within the student's previous understanding. So at the planning stage, you want to plan the most of your teacher talk to be during the lesson summary. While students are working on their explore section, you are choosing student work that relates to the big mathematical idea of the lesson. And at the end of a summary, you want to make sure you have a tangible place to record that math punchline for the day, where you and students can refer back as you move on into future lessons.